Yoga is a really effective practice for managing the physical and psychological symptoms that women experience during their perimenopause and menopause. So today, I talked to Menopause Yoga expert and practitioner Maria Hastings, who unpacks the best ways to use yoga and wellbeing to manage your menopause journey. Hi there, I'm neuroscientist Dr. Ben Webb, sharing brain advice for a mentally healthy and happy midlife. Welcome to episode 92 of Better Brain, Better You. So the greatest benefits of yoga will be experienced if you include it as part of a holistic approach to health and well-being. So that includes nutrition and lifestyle changes as well. So before we talk to Maria, I want to give you my Brain Healthy Foods for Midlife guide. This free guide lists the top 20 foods you should be eating in midlife to help you boost your mood, sharpen your memory and your thinking. And not only that, you also get an easy to follow and delicious brain boosting recipe taken from my brand new cookbook, Brain Healthy Eating for Midlife. So you can grab this free guide at ologyonlinecourses.com/brainfoods. That's ologyonlinecourses.com/brainfoods. So that's my free gift to you, so please do enjoy. So let's jump into this really interesting discussion with Menopause Yoga expert Maria Hastings. So welcome to the podcast, Maria. It's lovely to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Ben. Thanks for inviting me to come and to talk about Menopause Yoga today.
Fantastic. So we've known each other for years, haven't we? Actually, going back many years
yes.
with our sons going to school together since primary school, and now just finishing their A-levels. So during that time, you were working in software development and product development for very recently. You set up your own kind of your own menopause yoga practice. What was the motivation for starting up a menopause yoga practice?
Well, I guess the first motivation was really about stepping away from my old career, and that happened for me in the middle of my perimenopause. So during my perimenopause, I was kind of working a busy career. I had all the everyday challenges of that. I wasn't doing so well, to be honest, in perimenopause. I had quite a lot of pain in hips and back, and I started suffering with anxiety, which can be quite common in perimenopause.
Okay.
And the things that I coped with really, really well at work, I just found those a challenge on a day-to-day basis. I ended up having a career break, went away for 6 months thinking I just needed to get a bit of rest, maybe I burnt myself out, and then I went back in there thinking, things might be better this time round. And 18 months later, I decided to leave. I knew that I wanted to focus on helping women kind of live healthier, happier lives. That's kind of always been my mission. And I really thought I would keep using my technology skills to do that. But I had a bit of a light bulb moment, and I realised that my path was actually more on the human side of helping women to be healthier and happier. And from there, I went into my yoga teacher training kind of almost overnight. And I guess I just completely embraced that. I did my yoga teacher training, I did meditation teacher training, I did teen yoga teacher training as well, because that was really important to me as well, with teenage children, that became very important. And from there I started teaching my yoga practice, and I primarily teach women. So I primarily teach women, I say, and a few good men, but I primarily teach women, and they are anywhere from 40s, 50s, 60s, even up to 70s. So the majority of the women that I teach are in a stage of menopause.
Yeah.
And I see women from the ages of, early 40s through to late 60s, even into early 70s, that long, struggling with menopausal symptoms. And, I believe that while I did have my challenges going through my own kind of perimenopause, that yoga was the one thing that stayed with me. So I've had my yoga practice for 25 years. I was quite convinced that, that's really what had kind of helped me keep moving, for one thing, during the menopause, keep me physically moving, and just kind of help me, tune into what was going on with me and how I was feeling and what was the root cause of it. And in particular, when I was suffering from anxiety, my yoga practice really helped me. And that kind of led me to think, okay, I'm teaching yoga now. I'm seeing these women in midlife. I myself am now kind of postmenopausal, and there was a huge change from when I was going through my perimenopause. So when I went through perimenopause, actually, even at the time when I was at work, I didn't speak to a single person about it. I didn't speak to my employers. I didn't speak to my husband, didn't speak to my sisters, and I didn't even really speak to my friends. And I know it was only 10 years ago, but things have changed an awful lot.
Hugely in that time, haven't they?
Yeah, they've changed an awful lot. So that now, I mean, it's wonderful. There's kind of this revolution going on, isn't there, where people are beginning to talk more openly about menopause.
Yeah.
So, being post-menopause, I'm kind of really just interested in all this wealth of information that's going on and wondering what else could I be doing in my yoga practices to help the women who come to my classes going through the menopause. So I started to look for information, just kind of looking around, and got all my yoga books out, was looking for all the sections about menopause, and there was a paragraph here and there was a paragraph there. And then eventually came across Petra Coveney. So Petra Coveney is the founder of Menopause Yoga. I think she's the first she's the first yoga teacher to be a member of the British Menopause Society.
Okay.
And she had put together the concept of menopause yoga, which was something I'd never come across before. And it immediately interested me because, what menopause yoga is, it's this like a perfect blend of East meets West.
Okay.
So it takes Eastern wellbeing practices, so primarily yoga and meditation, with lots of other kind of influences in there. But it brings those together with the kind of latest research and information from Western medical science.
Okay.
So talking about medical solutions, and we would talk about HRT, we would talk about other medical solutions, but we would also talk about diet and nutrition and the importance of exercise and refining your lifestyle. And we would also talk about other natural therapies. So we might talk about acupuncture or aromatherapy or herbal medicine. So this approach, this menopause yoga approach that Petra had put together is entirely holistic. It's entirely holistic and it's non-dogmatic. So it's not saying it's yoga or it's HRT. It's kind of saying it can be a blend. It can be a blend of all of those things. And for me, that just really appealed to me. It kind of suited my kind of scientific nature as well as my kind of love of yoga and all things well-being. And I guess I began dipping my toe in the water with a little... Petra runs an awareness course. So it's for yoga teachers who are looking to support women going through the menopause in their classes. And I went on that first. And even that was just a real eye-opener to me there. I guess there were so many things I thought I knew that I didn't really understand fully. And it sent me away kind of wanting to do more. When I heard on that course, I kind of felt really quite naive and almost a bit embarrassed to not really appreciate just how much suffering a lot of women go through. I'd known about my own experience, but there's some terrible suffering that women go through during the menopause, and it just left me wanting to do more. It left me wanting to do more for the women that I see in my classes, and just to be able to help a broader range of women. So I jumped straight back in and did the full yoga teacher training for the menopause. With Petra, with a group of wonderful other yogis, all from different disciplines, all from different backgrounds, but kind of with a common purpose to really to share what we've learned with other women going through the menopause, to ease the suffering of women, to kind of help them learn what they can about their menopause, to be able to embrace it, and to just have a more positive experience, not just going through the menopause, but really for the rest of life.
So I suppose I'm just thinking, so when you think of yoga, so yoga menopause, how is it different to other forms of yoga, or is it very similar in its practice?
So essentially menopause yoga is designed to be a therapeutic yoga practice. First and foremost, it's therapeutic. And that just means that every single part of a menopause yoga class, whether it's a breathing exercise or a yoga posture that we'll be holding, or some gentle movement or some mindfulness and meditation, everything is chosen for its therapeutic purposes to be supportive of women in particular stages of menopause. So, and some parts of the practice are going to be helpful whatever stage of menopause you're in. And then there are some other things that might be more suited to particular symptoms that might arise more commonly at different stages of menopause as you go through perimenopause, into menopause, and then through to post-menopause. And some of the things that are kind of underlying and in every single practice would be really about practices that are going to help you manage and reduce your stress. So we know that when there's high cortisol within the body, then that just makes it difficult for all other hormones to come into balance. So that's one of the primary focuses, is activities within yoga to help women manage and reduce stress. So that can be things like simple breathing practices, whether it's just mindfulness of your breath, observing of your breath, or consciously, beginning to slow the breathing down, breathing more diaphragmatically, or lengthening your exhale so that you come more into parasympathetic nervous system, activate the kind of soothing system within your body. That is pretty common in kind of just about every menopause yoga practice that we do. And, many women aren't really familiar with breathing exercises. It's not something every day, is it? So having the chance to just kind of teach those little tools in the context of a menopause yoga class and giving women breathing practices that they can call upon any time during the day, maybe when they feel their anxiety levels rising a little bit, or when they feel a hot flush just beginning to rise within the body. Having something where you can just pause and stop for a moment, reconnect with your breathing, that can be really helpful. So other ways of reducing stress within menopause yoga classes is slow, repetitive movements, typically quite close to the floor. So there's a sense of grounding, which can be very calming for anxiety as well. And repetitive movements that don't take too much thought can be very good for reducing cortisol as well. So not complex movements, but simple movements, things like, cat-cow poses where we're just gently flexing and extending the spine, circling the hips round. Those movements can also be very kind of calming and good at reducing stress. And we also kind of gently kind of make sure that we're lubricating all of the joints within the body. So from perimenopause onwards, really, as estrogen levels start to go down, then there can be tightness, there can be stiffness. It's one of the kind of biggest issues that women coming to menopause yoga face, to be honest, is stiffness in their joints and not feeling that they can take part in the activities that they normally would take part in, just at a time in life when you really want to be moving more. So we have a lot of fluid, you might even call them somatic movements, where you're moving the body gently and at the same time kind of sensing into how the body feels as it moves. And it's not, it's intended to be relieving of pain and just increasing of mobility and just having a very pleasant movement within the body so that it feels good when you actually move. And we would work into the kind of key joints that tend to be problematic, so things like shoulders, hips, lower back, and even the small joints, wrists and ankles and knees to some extent, can all be problematic. So smooth, fluid movement. Menopause yoga is not one particular style of yoga. It's very kind of non-dogmatic in its approach. Essentially, it's movement, gentle movement, it's breathing practices, it's meditation and mindfulness that can come from the yoga traditions, but equally from different Buddhist traditions as well. We can draw upon all of those different practices. Within there, we also practice yin yoga. So yin yoga is like a slower form of yoga where we would hold poses for a longer time and come into the breath, a little bit more meditative as well, but we kind of put a little bit of stress on the joints as we stay in those poses. So rather than working just with muscles and bones, then we're coming in looking at joints, ligaments and fascia, all of which, again, another area that can suffer during perimenopause and menopause as we become slightly less lubricated throughout all the tissues within the system. So yin yoga is lovely, in particular at perimenopause stage as well, when there can be quite a lot of heat within the body. And it can be quite nice to... Yin yoga is quite cooling, is quite reflective, it is quite meditative, so it's really lovely to practice around the time of perimenopause. And a large component is restorative yoga, which, is different from even slow-flowing yoga. Restorative yoga would be where the body is supported using... Everyone brings their blankets, their cushions, bolsters, straps... And the body is really supported in something like maybe like a reclined butterfly pose or a child's pose where we'll be folding forward over a bolster. And the body is entirely supported. So it's about relieving all muscular tension. So tension from the body, tension from the mind. And it just brings the body to and the mind to a more calm, reflective state. And, during all stages of menopause, there's this sense of just being bombarded by all of your symptoms, and your mind is racing, your body doesn't quite feel like itself. So to just kind of ease all of that and come to this reflective state, and just be encouraged to rest and to nourish yourself with just some time and space can be really lovely.
So you said it's holistic, and you can actually. So you mentioned anxiety there, you experience yourself, and stress as well.
Yeah.
And so you can work on some of the specific symptoms that come up during menopause and perimenopause.
Oh, certainly. I mean, like we spoke about, there's all these kind of general things that it can help with, but specific symptoms that can arise, such as we've spoken about anxiety and how much of a problem anxiety can be for women, particularly in perimenopause. Your levels of progesterone can begin to drop off as your ovulation cycles fail, and that can take away your calming hormones. Progesterone is our nurturing hormone, and that can leave women who've never suffered from anxiety in their life just being left with a feeling of unease, and that's something that we can work on quite a lot within our menopause yoga classes. So we will use specific breathing practices. We've spoken about slowing the breath down. We will also use other practices like alternate nostril breathing is very good kind of calming breath. We'll use a humming breath as well. Really lovely kind of grounding breathing practices as well to calm the nervous system down. And these slow somatic movements close to the floor to just have a sense of safety and grounding. And even, just releasing some of the physical tension that accumulates in parts of the body that hold on to tension when we're anxious. So when that fight or flight reflex is kind of kicking in, and you will notice it kind of around shoulders and the chest and the diaphragm as well. The same in the hip, the psoas muscle, the big muscle connecting upper body to lower body. We'll do some really releasing lunges and things to kind of help release that. Simple things like releasing the fingers and the jaw as well. They're such simple movements, but they are really good at helping bringing you out of the stress response. And some of our yoga poses that are restorative, they're really lovely for anxiety as well. We'll do a lot of supported forward folds where the head can really rest on some bolsters and some props, and kind of just something about the head coming closer to the body can just be very calming for the nervous system as well. And, it might be surprising, but simple practices like balancing, where you have to just be so focused in the moment on what you do. So we do some quite specific balancing practices where we'll use various bricks and blocks, and we'll balance them on our head, or we'll stand on bricks and try and focus our balance that way. The mind just becomes so absorbed in what it's doing that it just brings the stress response right down. So those can be lovely practices for anxiety. So I imagine the part of the session what's really important for women as well is not only the actual practices of the yoga itself, but actually coming together and the connection with each other. Yes. And just the practice of community, of being together. Absolutely. When you run a menopause yoga session, it's really hard to keep things on track because you know that the yoga is really beneficial, but the women absolutely love to talk in the women's circles, and you just have to nurture that and kind of let it happen. Lovely. So absolutely, that sense of community connection, yes, that word that you used is perfect. And, there's this response in women when women come together. We release this oxytocin hormone, and it's one way that women deal with stress. It's part of the female stress response, really, where we lean in and we just have such a desire to support each other. And what is really lovely in these menopause yoga sessions is that, very often you will have women across all stages of the menopause, and you will have women from their 40s to their 60s. And it is so beautiful to hear the women of different ages and stages, genuinely just have such empathy and support for each other. It's, it's a very important part of it. So if I'm running a course, then, over the 4 weeks of the course, the women will really bond with each other and support each other. And it's really, it's really part of the process. Yeah.
Amazing. So what is this, like an arc, let's say the sort of arc of a session, what does it kind of look like for someone arriving at a class?
So it would be a friendly, welcoming space. That's the first thing I would say. And, menopause yoga it's like a community-run thing. So we're not talking about private menopause clinics. This is a community-run class, and it's really designed to welcome all women in, whatever their walk of life is, whatever their experience is, and that's important to me. So the first thing is welcoming, And I like to start off with this, like a little ceremony or a little ritual, and it might just be a cup of herbal tea, or it might be that I'll make a blend of aromatherapy oil, and we'll focus on oils that are really supportive of going through the menopause, and then we'll put some oil on and we'll inhale it, and we'll just have a little, a gathering, a kind of welcoming. And then we would typically go into a women's circle, and that would be on whatever the theme of the week would be. So we might be getting to know each other. So we might be sharing stories about our age and our stage of menopause, or we might be talking about symptoms that we're particularly struggling with. So we would have a women's circle. Every woman would have an opportunity to speak if she wanted to, and we would just hear each other's stories. And then we would typically come into the menopause yoga practice. And we would begin, depending on the theme of the class, again, we would begin with setting some intention for the practice, and maybe focusing in on some breathing exercises specific to what we were doing. So we might be doing, if we're focusing on perimenopause, we might be doing some cooling breathing. If we're focusing on stress reduction and anxiety, we might be kind of deepening the breath, lengthening our exhales, trying to bring the body more into the parasympathetic nervous system. And then we would typically just do some gentle somatic movement, mobilising different parts of the body. So all really kind of warming up and getting the body going. And then we would use poses and practices specific to that practice.
Right.
So that might be some standing poses. It might be some more yin style poses. And then we would kind of, the arc of the class would just work its way towards the more yin style and into the more restorative poses. So we would typically work towards the end of a class coming down into a restorative pose that would be just right for that particular practice. So we're using our props, snuggling under blankets, and just bringing the woman in the group to this place of complete rest, of complete muscular relaxation, no strain placed on the body, and just a place where they can just come out of that reactive state of mind, come more deeply into their body, come more deeply into their breathing, and then they would have time to rest. We might do a little yoga nidra. I like to use yoga nidra, which is like a yogic sleep, almost like a guided meditation, but it's kind of, it's the idea that it guides every layer of the body into a state of rest. So you're awake and aware, but you're fully rested. It's a really beautiful practice as part of menopause yoga. And in that kind of restorative state, then we would bring in the ideas of, we would use poetry and we would use prose, and that's really just to kind of help tap into the emotions that you might be experiencing. And again, we would choose the poetry and the prose to really fit with the theme of the class. So, and coming out of the restorative pose, it would be quite common for us to sit for a short meditation practice. And a lot of women who come to menopause yoga might have never practiced meditation before, and meditation can be quite challenging for people.
Yeah.
But when you come through this arc and you've moved the body, you've settled the breath, it just becomes a bit easier to come into a meditation practice. And we would encourage women to take it in any posture that was comfortable to them. And we would focus on maybe a sense of acceptance. We would focus on self-compassion. We might focus on joy or gratitude, because one of the beautiful things about meditation is really to focus on what feels good in the body as well as what's problematic, and that's really powerful in meditation. So we would just kind of soak up some of those nice good feeling juices in our meditation. And then one of the things I haven't really spoken about is coming away from that, we would then invite some journaling. So we would use journaling within menopause yoga. And as a teacher, I might offer some prompts. And again, they would be depending upon the theme of the class. And so really just inviting people to express whatever has arisen for them during the practice. Because, one of the things about practicing yoga in this way is that it really offers you an opportunity to tune in. And that is, I would say, that is one of the biggest benefits of a yoga practice during the menopause, is just the ability to tune in to yourself and to listen to what you need, because the body does tend to know what it needs. We're women, we've lived a bit, and we kind of tend, it's somewhere in the body. And if you can just kind of tune in and listen to it, the body will tell you what it needs. Yeah. So you do get, wonderful revelations that come from deep within as you go through this kind of therapeutic practice. And I think, so that could be the end to the class. I've just realised I haven't really said too much about, after Women's Circle, we would, that's when we would share knowledge and information as well. So not just about our own experiences, but as a teacher then we would probably be sharing information. It could be about nutrition, or it could be about other medical solutions. We would talk about HRT, because women coming to our classes are always interested to know about HRT and to know if it's suitable for them and what are the risks and how it can help them. And, as menopause yoga teachers, that's something that we are prepared to facilitate those discussions. Yeah. So as part of our training, then we have guest speakers. So we have Dr. Louise Newson's kind of clinicians who will kind of tutor us during our training. So we're not the experts, but we're able to facilitate those discussions. Yeah. And, the really important thing for us as teachers is to signpost women onto those trusted sources of information. Yeah. So that all happens within the class as well.
It sounds wonderful. So, it's a very welcoming environment with education, community, and connection. And obviously the practice of doing the yoga itself. Yeah. So I was just thinking of women that might be reluctant, let's say, to come along to to a class like that. Who might not have moved for some time. What sort of thing would you say to encourage them?
I would say that you should expect a warm welcome, and you should expect a really kind of non-judgmental place where you can come and just begin to move a little. And if you haven't moved for a while, that's really fine, and it's not uncommon. It's not uncommon for a woman to stop moving and to stop doing the things that they love while they're going through the menopause. I did it myself. I kept my yoga practice going, but there were lots of other things that I did give up. And also, women in the menopause may be even feeling kind of stiffer and more immobile than they even usually would be. Women might feel self-conscious about having gained weight during menopause as well. And I would say it's the most inviting, welcoming space for you to come and move a little. And, it's like this in a yoga class anyway. Anything that is offered by a teacher is an invitation. Really. Yeah. It's not you will do this, you must do that. It's how does this feel in your body? And And certain things can be difficult if you're feeling a little bit stiff, like getting up and down from the floor can be difficult. But we also design menopause yoga to be, it's not for experienced yogis, it's for all women. So we start with very simple practices. You know, we might be lying on the back and just gently moving into the hips or into the shoulders. And we would adapt practices as well. So I have ladies come who find it difficult to bear weight, either through wrist joints, elbows, shoulders. So for example, we would use a chair to adapt practices, and you can get so much range of movement out by just kind of placing the hands on a chair rather than being on hands and knees. So if you're bothered about your knees as well. So I would say you will receive a very warm welcome and you will enjoy movement. So many women have said to me, my hips have not felt this good in ages.
Wonderful.
I had not realised how stiff I had become.
Yeah.
So what I would really say is like a little bit of movement and a little bit of meditation go a very long way.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier, so we've talked about the perimenopause and menopause, but postmenopause yoga as well. So
yes, yeah. So I'm postmenopause myself now. So I guess I've got a kind of awakened interest in it, and postmenopause is a very interesting time. So in postmenopause, I guess that's our hormone levels have dropped. Our estrogen levels are quite low, and so is testosterone and progesterone as well. And what we need from our menopause yoga practice changes a little bit at that stage. Particularly for women's health with low estrogen, we are more at risk of other illnesses. So we have to look after protecting ourselves against cardiovascular disease. We have to look at the risk of dementia. We have to look at osteoporosis, and there's kind of also more risk of depression, kind of as we age and as our estrogen depletes as well. And there can be other challenges as well. Low energy, something I've struggled with a lot myself. And digestive issues as well can be really kind of common. Sluggish digestion, weight gain. So the challenges of postmenopause are a little bit different. And it would be a time when we would look to make our practice be more dynamic.
Okay.
I'm not talking about throwing ourselves around the room or anything, but we might hold poses for longer.
Right.
Go more deeply into our breathing, and we might pulse in poses. So this idea of tensegrity, where we're pulsing up and down and the ligaments pull upon the bones, which kind of helps strengthen the bones. We would do more weight bearing, so either standing balances or hand balances, where we were just kind of putting weight through one part of the body, all to help build more mineral density. We might do more energizing things like sun salutations that are really good for just really getting the heart and the lungs going in, not in a taxing way, but just kind of working them in a very nourishing way. And in postmenopause, I like to do a little bit of kind of strength training through yoga as well. So we might hold plank positions. We might do kind of little yogi press-ups and things as well. And we might do little bursts of activity. I call them little yogi sprints, where we might do, a minute of squatting. And these are all things that are good for the bones.
Yeah.
They're good for the heart, and they're good for the brain as well. They're really good for the brain.
Absolutely.
So, and like I said, we would kind of look to lift energy and lift mood a little bit in postmenopause, because it's an interesting time. It's kind of a time, they call kind of postmenopause second spring, but I kind of think of it a little bit more like waking up after winter. You're not
coming out of
quite
hibernation.
you're coming out of hibernation.
Yeah.
It's not something that happens overnight.
No.
And you might not feel the way that you expected to feel. And we talk about this a lot in our menopause yoga classes, and you might not be what people expect either. People might be waiting for you to spring back, post-menopause, but you're the same, but you're different. You've changed, you've grown, you've transformed on on many levels, physically, psychologically, emotionally. You've changed, and it's all wonderful. But it takes time to emerge. It takes time to emerge. So therapeutically, we can talk about all of those things in post-menopause as well. And And that is quite revolutionary to women as well.
Wow, it's one I really do. I love the holistic nature of it and how adaptable it is, to different stages as well of perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. Yeah. So, the name of your practice, Bridgeford Yoga. So, where can people find out more about the work that you're doing?
Well, I run regular menopause yoga courses suitable for women in all stages of menopause. And those tend to run in West Bridgeford, where I'm based. So you can pop over to my Facebook page or my Instagram page, or you can contact me on my yoga business email, and I'm sure we'll have all the details. And I'm also looking to extend those courses to get to more people by running them in an online format. So still small groups, still chance for that sense of connection. Because connection is so important during menopause, connecting both with yourself, but connecting with the stories and the experiences of other women so that you don't feel alone. So I want to bring more of those courses online. So if you want to find out more about that and to hear more, then just get in touch with me.
Fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful. So I've really enjoyed this, Maria, honestly, and I know our viewers and listeners are going to get a lot from this particular episode. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
You're so welcome. Thank you very much, Ben. Thank you.